So, Josh, did you watch it?
I did.
Did Naomi watch it?
She and Ari both watched it.
Ari watched it?
Yeah, well, she walked out once and then she came back.
Okay. So I guess we'll circle back onto that. Hey, so everybody, this week we watched and reviewed Mortal Kombat Legends: Scorpion's Revenge.
Mortal Kombat!
I'm super excited about. So this is a perfect timing for the podcast too, because the digital release was last week, so we all got a chance to watch it. And then the Blu-ray DVD comes out like on the 28th, I think. So by the time you're hearing this, you'll have a couple of days lead to get the physical copy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess they implied on the WonderCon panel that the Blu-ray would have extra special features, which I didn't know until after I got the digital.
Interesting.
Hopefully that's not true, but I don't know.
We did get to watch extras.
Yeah, there were some extras on there. But I guess full spoiler warnings for anybody. There's a couple interesting twists if you're an MK fan, but for the most part, it's the story of the first game and or was the 9th tournament, but the first game.
Everybody loves a twist.
Well, I imagine like if you want to watch this, I'm sure you're very familiar with how it's probably going to go.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was actually watching Grace Randolph's review of it. And she said she's a Mortal Kombat newbie. Like she was always aware of the brand, but she didn't really like follow the story.
She's a greenhorn.
Yeah, so she said this was a really great movie for her because she's like, okay, I get the idea. You know,
Okay.
like and all the pop culture stuff like fits together. You know,
Yeah.
in the lore for her and stuff. And
Johnny
Johnny
Cage.
Joel McHale, man. He's having a killer week. He hosted the new episode of Tiger King, and then he came out with his basically starring role. He's almost the main character,
Pretty much.
in this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. What'd you think?
Sorry. Go ahead.
I loved it. I thought it brought exactly what the fans wanted for Johnny Cage. I mean, they kept very close to what the lore is, even though it's such a huge lore. They were still able to take iconic points of, touchdown points of this timeline and really feed it out to us, and it felt good. It did.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. I mean, like, obviously it's going to be something you've kind of almost already seen, I guess. But, yeah, it's kind of updated. It kind of reminded me a lot of, like, the DC stuff that they do. I didn't think it was that as violent as you thought. I mean, I knew it was going to be a little bit more, but, like, some of the DC stuff's pretty dang violent.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, I did see, and so just when I mentioned the WonderCon panel earlier, they did it digitally because this was supposed to release in the middle of WonderCon. But they did mention that the reason that this was able to happen is because I haven't seen it, but the Killing Joke did really well.
Yeah.
So I guess that's pretty ultra violent.
Yes.
I mean, I do think that they brought it with the violence, especially with, having this many years of Mortal Kombat now. There's been like so many decades, or almost like generations of this game growing up. So now we have like the X-rays, and they were able to incorporate all of that stuff into this movie, and I thought that was a very interesting thing for animes coming out now are like introducing different type of things like that. It was super interesting for me.
Yeah, I loved so much about it. There was a couple things that I like when I didn't like it. I really didn't like it, which was interesting. So I guess we get into spoiler territory. But so I don't know if you noticed, like anytime there was an animation of two doors opening, or the double doors opening, so janky CG, so weird. It was like PS1 kind of graphics. Did you notice that? Like when they would walk through double doors and be like, and it's just like, wow, that was like a transition.
Any like Z feel in this whole thing. The only time I was really inspired by what was going on was with the Scorpion's chains.
Yeah.
And then just the overall sound, I could have a whole nother conversation about.
I could definitely get with that, like some of those weird, I don't know, almost like say you got your PS4 or whatever, and you got the other where you can rotate around yourself.
Yeah,
like I felt like some of the times when they were going around people felt like that.
Oh, I could see that too. Like when they're running down the alleys and stuff.
Yeah,
yeah. Or I think there's one point, where like Raiden's just kind of messing with him, and he like the room kind of looks sideways for a second. It's almost like skewed.
Oh yeah. There's always like direction in the thing. You can tell there's like computer stuff in there.
Which most of the time, not so much, but yeah, there's those those small parts. Naomi actually really liked it, which is funny.
That's awesome.
What she said afterwards, she's like, it wasn't scary at all. She said it was like, it's basically like Itchy and Scratchy.
With Sub-Zero.
Like, she's kind of right, because I mean, if you watch those old Simpsons where they have Itchy and Scratchy all the time, like they're constantly like peeling back their skin or whatever else, or blowing up their skull or.
True that.
So what was cool about this was, as a fan, it's the first time I've ever seen like Mortal Kombat in like a TV or film thing represented in its true spirit, even though things were different and there was a couple things that were kind of wonky. Like the whole thing, like Sonya felt like Sonya, Cage seemed like Cage, Liu Kang, everybody, like nobody seemed out of place. It was like, oh yeah, that's that person, and this the vibe at the story, like. One of the key points that if they do this in the movie that they can't fuck up is anytime you arrive on Shang Tsung's island, if there's ever a cinematic to it, it has to be the most epic thing to like set the because that's the setting. It's the world between veils and stuff, and so like they did all that stuff, but then the violence, which I was getting to, was like it wasn't. I mean, I guess it was violent for being violent's sake, but at the same time, it was very much in like the style of Mortal Kombat,
right?
And stuff like everything felt like it could have been in the game or was in the game.
Yeah.
So it hit a like really good balance.
You just reminded me of Jax getting his arms ripped off. Like, oh my god,
that was so visceral. Like, would they just show like the arm muscles?
Yeah, like they're gonna go there. Yep. They went.
Of course they are. He's got metal arms in the next game.
I thought that Goro was gonna just start chewing on it like a turkey leg because he said something about eating.
Yeah. What was interesting also was Raiden stepped in and kind of cauterized the arms.
Yeah, just quietly. Like
I thought it was interesting that they even just added that type of detail. I don't know. It was just popped out of me on me. I was like, what? Why'd they do that?
That was an interesting kind of like a Feige-esque change, is the story of like Jax getting his arms ripped off. So like in the original trilogy, like back in the 90s, I'm not completely sure that we were told what happened. We just knew between the second and third game
they lost the arms.
Something that happened.
Yeah.
Eventually the lore became that Ermac ripped his arms off with telekinesis, and I think that was in like the rebooted timeline.
Yeah.
And so when it happened this way in this, it was like kind of unexpected, but also like not offensive. You know what I mean?
Goro, it made
like,
sense.
Well, it's one of those changes where it's just like, I don't know. You get the fans, whoever the screenwriter, like they got it. They're like, okay, so this is how it's going to have to work for the story. That's what he chose to do this time, but it doesn't feel, like you'd only know as a fan like what details you could shift.
Huh.
Like I don't know.
Yeah.
There's stuff like that for other fandoms. Like you can make like one of Harry Potter's like parents a certain way and stuff, but there's things you can't. Or I guess Batman's a better story. Like, he becomes orphaned. It's like after it's after like a show and they're in the alley and stuff, and like certain details of like how the Joker ended or something, or like little shifts, but not like disappointing changes. I don't know. It was like a cool like, oh okay, that's cool. I accept that. I wasn't super excited about it. But at the same time, it was like, no, that checks out. That was something they didn't have to keep.
I have to say that I feel like there are a few characters that were very underutilized in this movie, but I've figured out why. Obviously, at the end of the movie, because they definitely want to make more of these, and they definitely hard clue into that. But like, still, I heard Rod actually verbally like say like, oh my, what the hell, Liu Kang was totally not used, like didn't even like do anything in this.
Yeah, he's kind of practically useless in this movie.
I was mostly disappointed because Katana's my girl, like she's my main, like she's been my favorite.
Oh yeah, and she just gave up.
She just like she literally just appeared and then literally walked out of the frame. Yeah, and then her design is not my favorite. It's from the MKX. I know a lot of people liked, but it's like a weird. I appreciate it, but it's like not my favorite aesthetic. I like Katana like simple,
right.
Like not like just like just classy and like timeless, and like this is a very like MKX like early mid 2000s kind of like vibe.
Yeah, it had all, she had all the bells and whistles.
Do they have the bones or whatever?
they changed. They're usually something sharp. Like in the original game, they were just like metal.
Yeah.
And then they kind of changed. Like in the game now, MK11, I think there can be bones, but for the most part, they're just like, it's kind of like if you had a bunch of like flat swords in a fan shape.
Right.
And so that's kind of what she has. And then I think in some iterations, they were almost implied to like be like some sort of energy or something, you know? Like they never like clarify that because you don't know about any of these weapons because they just kind of toss them around. Like, where did they pull them? That's an itchy and scratchy thing. Like, where'd you pull that from? But about Liu Kang, yeah, at the end, I was just like, okay, I'm kind of upset. That's the only besides the weird door animations and 3D things, Liu Kang's whole I think the writers missed that he didn't win anything on his own throughout the entire thing, except for maybe one of the group battles or something. But the first fight with the katana, he got at least 2 of the fights were conceded to him, like forfeited.
Right.
And then the one Scorpion saved him.
Yeah.
And stuff. So I was like, I think maybe he won one fight. Was it like with Kano's camp? But it was like a team thing. And I was like, I don't know. It was weird. It was just weird that he was singled out as a character because he's like he's the Captain America of the Mortal Kombat universe, you know?
Right. And giving him the little like foo noises.
Oh, that was perfect though. So,
yeah, I mean, I was like, well, this is obviously like more for the game, but like it was a little cheese.
Oh, the Liu Kang noises?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought as a fan, like, it was a good balance of not being as over the top as the original ones were, but still, like, referencing it, because it would be disappointing if Liu Kang didn't have that.
And it was just a bunch of, like, kick sounds.
So, I watched the panel, the online WonderCon panel, and the voice of Liu Kang, so he said it was weird. I forget if he got the role or not, but in the previous years and years ago, he was supposed to be starring in a movie, something about Bruce Lee. So he's actually going to coaching to sound like him.
Oh wow.
And he was like, this is going to sound, I think the guy's British, but he was like, I kind of don't believe in this hokey stuff, but my coach was just like he named an animal, I forget what it was, like pull a tiger and imagine a bear is attacking you or something, then there's a dragon. It's like, what's that noise? And he punches, and he made the Bruce the haw. He's like, it just happens. It's like, that's why he does it. So he trained as Bruce Lee for months.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if that movie ever happened or not, but then later when he got the audition call for Liu Kang, he's like, oh yeah, I got this. And I guess they got him because he's able to do it.
I trained for this.
Yeah.
I got all the noises down.
Right. And then was it Jennifer Carpenter was Sonya Blade? Mm-hmm. If you're a horror fan, you know she was. I think it was the Exorcism of Emily Rose or something. She's in things like that.
That's right.
She's been voices for some other characters and stuff.
She was pretty awesome in this. I would say.
I really like Sonya's depiction in this.
I really like the choice of camera angles as well, especially when she's upside down doing that spin kick thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know where that move came from.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing it was new for the movie. But I loved that they did the scissor kick because that's the special move from the first game that usually gets forgotten.
Right up to the head.
She's usually Black Widow when she's on cartoons and stuff.
Oh, the Jennifer Carpenter?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I was like, I know she sounded familiar. I got it.
And then Kevin Michael Richardson, that voiced Goro in at least the second Mortal Kombat movie. I forget if the first one or not. Voiced Goro in this one.
What a gruesome death, too. Goro.
God. They weren't afraid to just pick him off.
He didn't even see it coming.
Right?
I felt like Kano was really not used very well.
If I was a huge Kano fan, that would have been really disappointing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that they went and kept him Australian and that he's still a prick. He's still an asshole, still a piece of shit, a wet piece of shit. They kept really true to that, but I feel like, especially with the eye thing too, they tried to bring as many natural things to Kano into the film. Did he have a knife? I don't even know. Maybe he had a knife at some point.
Knife at some point.
But still, getting hit in the head or getting hit in that metal eye is just a weird way to go out.
Well, it wasn't just that. It looks like he got curb stomped.
Yeah. He got hit in the eye twice.
Yeah, they broke it. And then they curb So interesting thing. I did want to see more of Kano after he had that little quip right before they had the big battle with all the black dragons.
Yeah.
Like this is after Jax gets his arms ripped off,
Right.
And like Sonya's like, "I'm gonna kill you," and Kano's like, "One, like I'll give you a hug." It's like because I can do something that your partner can't. I'll give you a hug, and I was like, "Oh, I want to hear more of him and Johnny Cage like, going back and forth because he's a smartass. That's awesome."
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. All that was kind of weird. It did happen, even though Scorpion wasn't like in it the most. It did happen to be around his story because I was wondering that until like the end. I was like, we haven't seen Scorpion in a while.
Yeah.
He'd pop in and out. But then I was like, oh yeah, I guess his story is really the kind of the thread that's holding this entire narrative together.
I have to be honest. They did Sub-Zero totally wrong in this, and Quan Chi can lick my balls because that was stupid, and like the way they wrote that in, that was totally them taking like a new branch, taking a new route into Mortal Kombat history because I don't remember any of that shit ever happening.
Which part?
Quan Chi disguising himself as Sub-Zero to kill Scorpion's family.
That's actually the end of Sub-Zero mythologies.
Was it? Because I played that game.
That's actually the game I think that Quan Chi is introduced for that role.
That he was the deception.
Yeah.
Because I was under the impression that Sub-Zero worked for Quan Chi.
That's kind of the thing of the game, but also like there's so many mixed continuities.
Yeah.
So I was suspicious that maybe this movie was tied to the comic somehow because of the same art style and similar stories and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
It is a parallel down to like, I think someone's going to correct me in the comments, but I think Scorpion's kid is named different things in the comic and in this movie.
Yeah. Tento or whatever it is in this movie.
But so I don't know if the game is necessarily canon adjacent to the understood story. It was interesting to see because, I mean, so I'll put a disclaimer out there. I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan. It was my favorite game growing up, but I had the original trilogy, like up to UMK3, and then I missed out on the middle years because college and life and work and everything, and then I jumped back in with like Mortal Kombat X-ish and definitely Mortal Kombat 11. So I missed like the middle awkward 3D years. So there might be lore in there that I don't completely know about, but for the most part, I don't remember there being a finite story of what happened between Sub-Zero and Scorpion besides their rivalry.
Yeah.
Some stories it's like Scorpion finds his revenge, kills Sub-Zero. So I guess this brings up an interesting point. Like, I think most people know this, but also I wouldn't be surprised if people don't. There's 2 different Sub-Zeros in this universe, kind of like 2.5. Yeah. So it's kind of fitting that the Sub-Zero we saw in this movie died like a bitch because we don't see a whole lot of him. Like, he technically, by lore, he's in the first game.
Yeah.
Then he gets killed somehow, and sometimes it's Scorpion and sometimes it's not. I don't know. But then in the second and third games, it's actually his brother. And his brother takes on the mantle of Sub-Zero from then on. And then the Sub-Zero that died in Mortal Kombat 1 becomes Noob Saibot. Later, his dead spirit or whatever, Bihan. And
I forgot all about that shit.
So I wonder if they're going to take that route, because that would be super cool, because like if Sub-Zero, like the Bihan dies like a punk like he did this time with, I mean,
and he comes back as Noob Saibot.
Yeah, that was kind of like such a poetic way for Scorpion to kind of get his revenge, like that was really satisfying to the title of the movie.
For this narrative and how they illuminated this whole thing to us, I think you're right, man. Both of them ending up on that spike.
On the spike. And it's funny because as soon as that happened, Vince was like, "Oh my god, he's going to have to crawl off that thing." Yeah, because they already like set the precedent that he's already dead.
Yeah,
he just feels pain.
So he feels all of that. Oh, he's got to climb off it.
And then I was like, well, I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. And then next scene, it's like Quan Chi has his monologue, and then all of a sudden it's like dramatic music, like Eye of the Tiger, and then he just crawls up. I was like,
crawling off of the spike. Oh my gosh.
The sound design was crazy for this one.
I'll tell you, man.
So in the special features, they talk about the sound design, and I guess the sound designers were like, well, when blood flies in the air, it doesn't really make a sound, Yeah. And so I guess the director was like, Well, imagine there's a camera there, and the sound it would make once that hits the camera. That's what they went with from then on. They just went overboard. I mean, good way, because you felt everything.
All the everything, yeah, the crunch, the bones, everything, man. Every time they did one of those X-rays, you felt every moment of it.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely some great shots, some great scenes. One of my favorite was probably the Sonya one, where she's, I don't know, they spent some extra time in animation in that or something, because you seem to go around the person a bit, and that's fun.
Oh, when we first see her like in the alley fighting that guy.
No, I think it was later.
Oh, okay. Was it like her first fight?
I think it was her first, Mortal Kombat fight or whatever.
Gotcha. That was an interesting thing too, to see that handled that way, because in previous iterations, it's kind of like we saw in the movies and the game and stuff. Is Shang Tsung has like his one place, and then he just kind of has a ladder, and a tournament ladder, and then just like watches everybody fight. And in this one, he's just like, I've like randomly teleported you in pairs. He's just like teams, like
Yeah.
and then they just had to figure it out, which was really interesting because it turned it kind of into like Mortal Kombat plus like
Hunger Games.
Yes, Survivor or something, like where like they don't even know who they're fighting or where they are to begin with.
The whole Johnny Cage and Baraka, that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Johnny Cage actually like held this movie up pretty well.
Yeah.
Because that whole first act, man, he was like the savior of all that.
It's so funny how much he resembles. I don't know if you guys know Booster Gold.
Not familiar. I'll look it up.
He's a DC superhero from the future, but he comes back in time, and like he kind of has all this technology or whatever to try to be a superhero, but he really wants to he's just really full of himself. He wants to be a superhero kind of to, just to be a dork. And I think Nathan Fillion usually voices him. And
okay.
It's very, very similar. The aspect of Johnny and him being there, just being full of himself, but really good at what he does.
Yeah.
And a bit of a dork.
It really like held up really well in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Definitely more so than the original movie.
Oh yeah, the original animated movie or the original movie?
No, the original movie. I mean, as much as I like that movie, the Johnny Cage in that movie isn't very funny.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like, at least attitude-wise, like a Joel McHale, just like constantly an asshole, but then smiles,
Yeah.
Stuff like almost like a Chandler, but less annoying.
And actually funny.
Like Bill Burr.
So there's a rumor that that Johnny Cage will be like either like half Asian or maybe Asian in the new Mortal Kombat movie.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't, so far he's not in any of the press that they've been putting out. So everybody's like, how can you have this movie without Johnny Cage?
Yeah.
But then there's one actor who's like, I forget if he's Asian or just mixed, but he's not, he's in the movie, but they haven't assigned him a credit. They're like, was that going to be Johnny Cage? And they brought up some good points. They're like, that would be really interesting to have him kind of be like an international action star, Because
like a Jackie Chan.
Kind of, yeah. Or maybe somebody like a Jet Li or something. Well, not like, see, those guys are like likable,
Yeah.
Like if they were kind of like a arrogant like international star, or something,
Like Jet Li.
It's interesting. Yeah. It'd just be interesting because like that's one of those characters. Like even though everybody's kind of changed like versions between like all the different characters and stuff, like Katana has gone from being like Hispanic to white to Asian to
right.
and or like she's from another planet, but dimension, so it's not really that, but just appearance wise. Johnny is one of the most consistent, besides maybe Liu Kang. Is like Liu Kang has always been Chinese, and Johnny's always just kind of been like vague white guy, like exactly like. And so I don't know if I'm mad. This wouldn't be one of those things where like we'll see how it is, and if it's bad, I'll be mad at it. But if it's good, like that might be an interesting take, because someone like Grace Randolph brought a good point up. She was like, wouldn't that be interesting to kind of see like someone that everyone universally hates but loves, like. That
that'd be interesting.
Who would be more arrogant than someone who's a famous actor in like all countries as an action star, and stuff. And like I was like, yeah, I could see that, basically like a K-pop guy, but in an action movie.
I mean, if he wasn't so jolly, it'd be more like The Rock,
Yeah.
Where he's like,
if
I'm
John
just universally loved around the world and in like a billion movies every year.
I was thinking if John Cho was the Awesome Hawk The Asian Hawk. That would work. I think. Am I thinking of the right dude? The guy who was supposed to be Spike in the live action Cowboy Bebop.
Oh yeah, isn't that John Cho?
Yeah, John Cho. That's right.
Yeah,
But he
it's
hurt
funny.
himself.
He hurt
right?
himself, so it got postponed, and now it's like I think it's coming up to the window where they were going to start reshooting. It's like, you know what? Never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's like-
I'm wondering if that's actually been canceled.
I don't know. I mean, Hollywood's everything's kind of like up in the air because we talked about this in previous things. Like, just nobody know. It all depends on audiences' reactions, particularly international audiences. Because even though the U.S. is a big chunk of money, like if China and like a couple other key countries like aren't back in the game at the same time, it's gonna like heavily impact like how our blockbuster movies are. You know,
Jesus,
like
yeah.
the Wonder Womans and the Marvel movies are like because Mulan was clearly slated to be like a crossover like American and like Chinese hit, right? You know, just the way it was done. It's like, well, now literally the two demographics they were going for are out of business, you know, like just not functioning.
Oh, it's so weird. The reality of that is unprecedented.
I know it's a little bit off topic, but have you seen that Ezra Miller video?
I saw it in a Phil DeFranco video, which was interesting. And I guess I was like, okay, so there was a bar open like in the middle of all this?
So, I mean, like, the only reason I bring that up is because I think that they keep trying to bring that Flash film back with him in it. And it's just, I kept going back and forth. And, like, this has been silent for, like, they really kind of tried to sweep this thing under the rug.
It's like a fart, silent but deadly.
Yeah. I don't know if
Sweep it under there, but you can still smell it.
really, if anybody doesn't know, I mean, like he was on. I thought that it might have been like a joke for a second,
Yeah, I think a lot of people did.
and it like he was somewhere, and he was with a fan, and the video is very very short, so you don't know what happened before and what happened after. But he appears to like chokehold this girl and put her on the ground, like as she just seemed at first
Okay.
like she's playing around, and I'm like. And then after a second, you're like, he's not playing. Like,
Yeah, he's like trying to hurt her.
yeah. Maybe he's drunk. I don't know. But I have no idea because the video is so short. But that's right now, it seems like it's a really big PR thing to where they're just like, ignore it.
Interesting. I didn't see it, so wow.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, they're trying to figure out. There's no reports about it yet, so they're trying
Yeah.
to figure out if like he knew her or something like that. But they said it seemed like they interacted a little bit before this whole thing happened, so you don't know what they said or something. But it looks like he was just trying to like beat the shit out of her.
Yeah.
Like it's
That's
what it
not
looks
good.
like without any explanation.
Right.
So I don't even know like how to like. It's going to take a really simple, interesting explanation for me to believe something otherwise, you know. But
Right.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't know. It's wild. I don't know the guy.
If he's got
yeah.
his hands on her, that's enough.
Yeah.
I mean, unless like they've come up with footage like the previous frame is like she pulled a knife and a gun on him or something, you know, like
Right.
I don't know, but I mean, it just doesn't look like that. It just looks like a bar fight.
You stole my Twinkie.
well, actually, at the beginning, it just looks like she's kind of joking back and forth, like at him, like just playing around, and then like he gets up on her and like puts his hand around her throat, and then you see it in her eyes, like, oh no, like I don't know. I'd have to watch it again. I don't know if I want to, but
Yeah, I don't know.
I think we've assessed that enough.
yeah,
But yeah, with the international like superstars and stuff, I don't know. Joel McHale was like a great voice for that. I was excited about it when I heard about it.
Yeah.
And then he completely delivered like all those lines. And another thing that was like a perfect kind of like decision was every Mortal Kombat story we've heard has been told from the story side of Liu Kang or maybe Raiden. Scorpion's always been explained, but we've never shifted like 10 degrees over to like his perspective.
Yeah.
And so that was really interesting this time because everything seemed really familiar, but also had a different motivation for me, you know? Because like I was telling Josh before he watched, I was like, I mean, you know, whatever your kids are fine with, like, but in like the first 10 minutes, a child gets murdered, you know, like, like, it just show like it starts like I know it was that way in a fan film and it's that way in the comics, but this time we really see like I don't know. They kind of pulled an Up where they made you fall in love with the kid and the family and stuff, in like a few minutes, and then they just like rip it away immediately, And then then the rest of the tournament has a sense of urgency to it because before it was like, oh, Liu Kang is just trying to do the right thing. That's always been.
Right.
But this time he is, but now he's in like he's on the not on the side, but like he's the Echo, and now we're just like we're with
Scorpion for right now.
Yeah, to like we feel his urgency because we're like avenging his like wife and son's death, and stuff. So it's just
it was a interesting way to follow different characters that we like ways that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, and then whoever did Raiden, he was on point. Like in the writing for him, the humor. Like I love that. They're like, why don't? It's like, should we tell him that the tournament's real? He's like, no. His journey is to learn. He's like, also it amuses me. And I was like, oh my god, that's so funny.
Good, man. Yeah.
He definitely had like a Batman vibe to him.
I could see that.
Like even the way that he was drawn and the way he like walked around. Yeah.
I get that. The other thing was, I kind of felt like Shang Tsung was kind of weak.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't expecting a lot just because it's just, the bar I set for this in the beginning, but I mean, not to get wrong or get anyone like the wrong idea. I love the movie. I'm just saying the outcome of Shang Tsung and everything. I don't think we saw enough because he could do so much cool shit.
So what was really interesting was they had old Shang Tsung, like the old man.
That was awesome,
right? So that's cool.
Like that, yeah.
And then in flashbacks, we see the Mortal Kombat 3 Shang Tsung,
right? Yeah, that was
which
killer, yeah.
Does make sense because like in Mortal Kombat, like the whole story of Mortal Kombat 1 through 3 is like he gets turned young because like the Shao Kahn does it for him, but like in this one, it's interesting to see him be young in the past. And so they almost kind of imply in the way the movie went that he's getting older like more naturally. So like that's why he's kind of a has-been. He's running the tournament. He's the general manager.
Yeah, he was old.
He's running it, but he's not doing anything besides teleporting people. And so I wonder if this movie doesn't, if they have a sequel and stuff.
Yeah.
If they'll explore that timeline, and the only like young Shang Tsung we'll see will be like in the past, or if they'll just try to revitalize him like they did in the games and stuff.
That'd be interesting. I would agree with that. Just seeing like if it's going to be new stuff or in episodes in the future, only having like the older Shang Tsung memories and stuff instead of like the old dude we saw in this movie.
Yeah. What do you think about the name?
Mortal Kombat Legends, Scorpion's Revenge.
Yeah.
Like what part of it or all of it?
All of it.
All of it. It sounds like something. If they were to make if they made this a series, it would make a lot of sense. Like if they did one movie based on like each of like let's say the main first game characters or something like that. Mm-hmm. The OCD in me and the fan in me would be like yes, but if other than that, it's kind of a mouthful. And they could have literally just called it Mortal Kombat 1, the animated journey or something like that. like
yeah.
But I don't know.
Like Volume 1, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it really feels like they were going for like, okay, we can't name this Mortal Kombat, and we can't do it this or that, or get anything close to something normal. We need to give it like an idea of something, like let's put Scorpion's Revenge in it. And I mean, while that is part of it, I feel like that's not like the main point. I mean,
yeah, it's not the only thing.
I mean, it does start and end on him, but it's just kind of weird. Like they retell the original, like the origin, and then add a little bit just to bookend it, and then they name it like it's his. Yeah. It would have been for me. It would have been like walking into this. I thought that this was going to more likely before it was kind of explained to me. I thought when I saw the billboards, I was thinking like, oh, it's an explanation. Like when we talk about where he came from and everything else, it's going to be all about that. It's like no, it's just him bookending it like at the beginning and the end.
Yeah,
right.
I kind of see that. I saw a little bit more than that, but not a whole lot. Like for me, it felt kind of like the wiring like underneath things, but like not necessarily the meat of it. That kind of like strung a bunch of stuff together because he did kind of pop in and out.
He was like Spider-Man.
Yeah, just kind of like conveniently, like, oh, we're gonna die. Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd have this point of view of like the fight with Jax, and then all of a sudden later on you see Scorpion pops in and out.
That's why I say like you're mainly through after the first like 5 minutes up until the last like 10 minutes or so, you're really watching the three.
Yeah, Johnny, Sonya, and Liu Kang.
And I mean that's what the story is kind of about. So it's just kind of weird to me that it was like, oh, this is Scorpion's revenge. Like,
that's why
to
they
me, it would have
couldn't
been
call
more
it.
likely this is just Mortal Kombat.
That's basically what it was. I mean, they just had like the Scorpion story was just like the tiniest bit like more prevalent like in the overall thing, but like at the same time, yeah, I get you. Like it was just like I wasn't mad at it, but I was also like. I don't know. It's kind of like in the extra features they kind of point out like Scorpion is like Mortal Kombat's. What did they say? No, they said was it Batman
Or Batman.
I think it was Batman because he has a revenge story.
Yeah.
And so like it makes sense when they do their first like it's not the first animated movie, but it's the first one they're going to claim. And because like the original one, you can't. I think they're trying to scrub it from everywhere, like the internet, like and stuff. Like I can't get those images out of my head though, like how crazy that was.
Oh,
and now,
I want to go watch it again because it's so funny.
Yeah, God. But they what was I gonna say? Oh, that it makes sense that they would want to put like their Batman on the cover. Like
Right.
let's do something. It's just kind of like if even if it was like Justice League and they just named it Batman, or something like or what was it like when they did Civil War was essentially an Avengers movie, but they're like Captain America Civil War.
That's a good example, actually.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, Civil War was a lot stronger of a movie and a concept to warrant having Captain America on it.
And I do feel like it is more. If you're going to name it anything other than an Avengers movie, it would be a Captain America movie. It's not like you're following anybody else closely in it,
Right.
But I almost. Now it's similar to Birds of Prey, to where they're like, oh, this is Birds of Prey and Harley Quinn. It's like, well, it's more like Mortal Kombat or no, Scorpion's Revenge and Mortal Kombat. To where it's like, oh, okay, it's mainly about the Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, the tournament.
Which I feel like the tournament was downplayed.
Yeah, we only got to see two, the first and last rounds essentially. Like, I get that too. Like, I mean, I guess I wasn't so upset about it that I like hate the movie, but I would have loved to seen more of like a journey of the tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get that.
But because they introduced this whole thing with like the Black Dragons are infiltrating the island and stuff. I was like, you're all gods. Like, can you do something about this?
Raiden gets all uptight.
I would have loved to see I don't know, Johnny Cage pulls out like the beef jerky or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
I would have loved to see like Scorpion munching on that or something. Just for a split second.
They're not far off because the tone of this movie was like so interesting to me because like some moments it was like this really straight, serious, like animated, film. And then on the drop of a dime, it would just turn into like full on comedic anime mode,
Right.
Yeah.
Like these be like, like Quan Chi especially. He's like, I'm the sorcerer. He's like, like you're waiting to see his jaw fall floor, like like a Looney Tune or something.
That was a good thing about it. I think the overall feel of the movie felt like more of a less like an anime, more like a real movie.
Yeah.
I did like a lot of you can tell who storyboarded it had a clear vision.
Man.
Because like so many things besides the bad CG transitions where like you could take so many stills as like desktop wallpapers or like just beautiful images, it's the way they angled things and stuff.
There's probably a million cuts.
It was really pristine. I mean, like the first thing I saw when we started watching, I was like, wow, those lines are sharp on everything. In fact, so much so that I kept seeing their knuckles. Like their knuckles kept looking like they were squares kind of. And I'm like, wow, it's so sharp.
And they were consistent with the other people in that universe.
Yes.
Had the same freaking type of knuckles.
It's funny because you say that because when the first time I noticed it was on Jax.
Yeah.
And in the flashback with Sonya.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, maybe they're like kind of giving us like the foreshadowing that the metal arms are coming, so they're making him look more. And I was like, no, everybody's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
somebody has like a handshake, like Johnny Cage and somebody, and then like you see the knuckles again, and I was like, what the heck, man? Why are they all squares like that?
So I forget if it was in the extra features or if it was in. I think it was in the panel that I watched. They said but all the character designs were that way because they said this was different than because I guess all these people used to work on kids stuff, and so this is all the foray into like adult, animation and stuff, and they were like. So the world of Mortal Kombat, no matter what dimension you're in, like Earth or Outworld or Netherrealm, is all dangerous. It's like everything needs to feel dangerous and stuff. So everything's like sharp lines, and stuff like as little roundness as possible.
dark.
Yeah,
But still have color.
and so
color.
So like instead of drawing Knuckles round, they just drew him really jagged because like everything should feel dangerous, give you this like ominence, of like like there's some danger like around the corner or something.
And they actually deliver on it, as opposed to like when you watch an older show, whether it be Thundercats or the Ninja Turtles or anything like that, the bad guys always had like those pointy, sharp, especially if they went to like a movie version to where like it can be a little darker. Things were pointier and sharper. Like if they got in a brawl with you, you're gonna lose some skin.
Yeah,
Even on their faces, like Hordak. He's like spikes coming off his head.
Like Mumra and everybody else, like all those people, like they're just super sharp looking. But like whenever they would get into a fight on the regular television show, they'd be like throwing pizzas at each other or something ridiculous. We're like, oh no! But then that was so like really downplayed in your brain. But like in the it was nice to see them follow through with it. In fact, I like most of these. I imagine this is Warner Brothers, like they have their own studio or something, because they all look very similar. But they're very good at what they do.
Yeah. Ed Boon in this panel said that he would come from because he's in Chicago. He would come to Burbank actually to work with the team on this. So I assume that animation studios in Burbank here.
Yeah.
Probably Cartoon Network.
Yeah, something like that. Or is Cartoon Network part of?
I thought
Warner
that it was
Brothers?
owned by Warner Brothers. I'm not sure.
Oh, cool. I don't know. I haven't watched Cartoon Network in years. But that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was like you said, like the delivery on the violence and stuff. Like it all made sense. It made sense in that logic. Like when he started like hacking people like they were made of jelly into like thirds and stuff. I was like, this is all in the spirit. It's not what I've seen before, but like this feels like Mortal Kombat translated into like a feature.
It was an amalgamation of styles that were very pleasing to my eyes.
Oh, I almost forgot. So I heard this on the panel by the screenwriter, I think, and I was watching it by myself and I almost like stood up and just started like applauding in my room because he said like something that was really important to me from the very beginning was when we have a character that we love for certain reasons, like let's not take the whole movie to get there. Let's just be there. So he's like, we love Scorpion because he throws a spear and he says, get over here. So we're not going to make it so that the entire movie he works towards getting a spear. We're just going to give him the fucking spear.
Yeah.
And then we're going to see it constantly throughout the movie. Like anytime Scorpion's in a scene, he's using it for something. He's choking someone. He's stabbing somebody. When we see Katana, we don't see her being like a normal human being. She's dressed up like that for whatever reason. But that's how we know her. So they yell Spandex to, she's like, she just walks into frame. We don't care why she's dressed up like that. She just is because she's Katana. And then we didn't explain any process of getting there. It's just the first time you see her, like, that's her. And then she's going to be dressed like that for the next, however many episodes the series has, Same with Liu Kang. Like with the exception of Johnny Cage, part of his character, he's like a frou-frou, like high maintenance guy. Like he'll change because of the styles and stuff.
Yeah.
But he could say if he gets into combat gear and stays that way for 13 years, like we'll all accept it because that's what we know of him, And we get to see those things, like we see like the fire, Liu Kang, and like Raiden uses electricity. The first time we see him, he uses electricity, and then every other time he doesn't like walk into a frame normally. He just always like teleports.
Yeah,
and
it's dope.
Goro, we didn't like have to like see him in the shadows for 45 minutes, and then he's just like at the beginning, he's like, oh, here he is, he's gonna pull his arms off,
Yeah.
So they just like he was like, I just want to keep delivering, like this is the character you loved. I don't want to spend time getting there because you don't care. Like we just want to see Scorpion, we want to see Katana, we want to see Liu Kang, like bam, 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 bam.
They got it in there.
Yeah, I always hate when they don't have people in their outfits. Like,
yeah,
and they like, oh, we have to have a reason for them to get into this outfit, and it's always cheesy, and it always takes you out of it. It's like, dude, just put them in it in the start. Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Why does Wolverine have to work his way up to that horrible black outfit?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
And yeah, I get that, and that's why I did love that about this movie is like everybody was in some version that we know from the game of their gear. Like that's a version of Sonya. It's not the original one that I'm aware of, but like it's one of the versions. It's either MKX or 11 version of her, but like she just stayed that way.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
Sonya was Sonya. I mean, they were all themselves, like right off.
She didn't
the
have the
bat, pretty much.
sweatpants or whatever she has on in the first game.
like the yoga pants.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As long as
yeah.
they're green.
Yeah, they're green. Yeah, like they. God, this was wild, but yeah, I
With
don't
the black side.
Yeah, she looks like she's gonna do some yoga. Like I'm looking at her now. Like or
Yeah.
some Taibo.
I think
Taibo.
somebody might correct me on this, but I think Sonya was like the. That can't be right because there was Chun Li. I'd heard that she was like the first female fighter in a fighting game, but the Street Fighter was first. There's some precedent there with Sonya being in Mortal Kombat because she wasn't originally, and then right before they released, they programmed her in because they didn't want to have an all male
She was
lineup.
the first white lady.
It was something.
Chun-Li is in white.
Forget what the thing. I'm gonna have to look it up. It was some random fact where it was like a big deal to see Sonya, and also that she was one of the most like powerful original characters. You know, because she was put in at the end, but she wasn't like a throwaway character by any means. Like she stood the test of time. You know, in fact, that whole main catalog, like they're all essential players, with the exception, I guess, Kano in this one kind of got thrown away a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's still
He's a bad guy.
But he was still the motivation behind Jax and Sonya doing their thing.
They kept
still had
it
a
pretty
purpose.
true. Yeah, as far as if you're trying to navigate this boat in the right direction.
I loved it as a fan that like they would. I don't know. I think these were clever nods of like it didn't take a non-fan or a new person out of the story, but would show like make me feel excited as somebody who knows every beat of the Mortal Kombat lore. You know, like.
Right.
So when that person was waiting in the alley while Sonya was fighting, so Vince was like, "Oh, she's being watched." I was like, "No, he's gonna tell her he found Kano." Like I just knew, you know, because it's like that's what he's there for. Like I know the story, you know, like,
Yeah.
and I love it because I was like so excited. But also, I don't think it doesn't mess up the story for like new people. It's not like a. What was that moment when I went with you and my brother to see Batman v Superman? Like the Flash comes out of Bruce Wayne in the Batcave out of nowhere,
yeah.
and then pops back in. It's like, what the hell was that? Both these guys were like, it's going to take a lot of explaining. Like, why would it take a lot of explaining? I don't get that.
I feel like that was really something they were trying to set up for the future, and they just were like, they got
They
rid of it.
flopped
You know?
it.
Yeah.
They flopped it hard.
But so that's the thing, though, is like, I get it. It's going to be a cool, like, Easter egg. And Marvel does this sometimes,
It
too.
would have been dope. If they could have pulled it off, it would have been dope.
I
but it
imagine
was-
if they would have had them look more in the more movies, they might have had to do some time travel stuff.
What they probably did, because they did, these guys don't plan out very far like Marvel does. So they probably came up with that awesome idea to do the whole thing like they did, and then they just didn't have anything left. They had to write everything and create this whole thing. They just couldn't do it.
Hey guys, 1 second. Penny, got
Okay.
back up. Talk amongst yourselves.
Okay.
Come on, Penny.
Me and Vince are, even though we have to deal with each other, are thankful that neither of us have children and this quarantine time.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it'd be fun, but it'd be tough, really tough.
I'm sure there's love, but also I'm really enjoying my free time right now.
Yeah,
It's like a once in a lifetime circumstance.
the amount of shit that you would have to do.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? When is this movie coming out? Like the actual live action movie
Thursday.
January something.
Yeah, just
of next year? I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, this
and not
coming
the year
it's-
after.
Yeah, so far it's stayed with the same schedule because like we don't know that far like how bad or good things are going to be and stuff. So so it's supposed to be on January.
Okay, and they're already finished principal photography, correct?
Yes. Like they wrapped shooting like a couple months ago, I think, and wrapping shooting early is actually why they moved the date up from February to January.
They got a lot of special effects to do.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
imagine.
so I'm cautiously optimistic.
So, do you think it's going to be like just another kind of what we just saw?
I don't know. 'Cause
I don't think so.
They've been really secretive about it. I also wouldn't be mad if it was like the Mortal Kombat 1 story. It's something, I don't know, for me, maybe it's because I haven't seen it as much in the pop culture zeitgeist. Like, I'm tired of seeing Bruce Wayne, become Batman as an 8-year-old or something. But because I've seen it hundreds of times now, but I think I've only seen like 3 or 4 times this Mortal Kombat story, or maybe more if you count the games and stuff. But I just love it because there's so many like liberties you can take with it, Like somehow, I don't know how, but it always ends up being Johnny Cage, Sonya, and Liu Kang. They're like kind of the trio that move forward. It would be interesting to see somebody like think outside that box because we've seen that a lot. But I mean, that also like starts getting dangerous because if you veer too much from the story, then you don't have a Mortal Kombat story,
That's the thing is like where for I always try to think like what would be the best route. Like, God, what honestly would be the best route? And the only thing I could ever think of each time is like, well, what character am I following? What about if I follow this character this time? Follow this character this time. And then you go down those holes and you're like, oh man, like we've already seen like the romance between Liu Kang and what was it? Katana. And then you go down a different tunnel and you're like, well, the only one I stumble upon is Raiden, following Raiden in his search to find these warriors. But then you're like, oh, well, that was the movie, right? That was the live action, the first one. You follow. What is this, Christopher Reed or whatever? No, not Christopher Reed. Who played Raiden? It was
Christopher. He's Highlander. I can't remember his. Christopher Lambert.
Lambert.
Yeah.
And you follow him to go find. Like you literally are with Raiden the whole first act. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While he's collecting all these people, I'm like, damn. Like, what is new that would be cool to shake it up? And everybody, the fan favorite's always like, well, let's follow Scorpion. And then like Sub-Zero, it doesn't seem to, just from history is like what we have so far. I don't think Sub-Zero has been able to carry. Scorpion obviously has been able to carry, and just the game overall has been able to carry. But none of these other characters by themselves. So it's like, damn, what would it be?
If like I was in a selfish world and just made a movie for myself, it would just be like Katana's whole story.
I mean, that might be cool though. But we have like Wonder Woman popping up, and Black Widow, and all that.
But I also get that like that's not necessarily like the best like broad stroke for the franchise, So
Wouldn't it be interesting?
Yeah, definitely, because she has a really interesting story. Like her mother's Sindel, her father was murdered. And, I mean, it's the whole thing, but
it's just what cat. You please finish.
If I were
so excited about this idea,
if I were in charge of this, like I probably wouldn't be able to write it, but I would be like the consultant, the Feige or whatever,
right.
stuff. If it were me, I'd be like, okay, we're rebooting this movie. The first time, was it been 30 or 20 years, 25 years, something like that?
Dang,
like,
that long ago? Sheesh.
Yeah, it's like, so we're going to do it right. So we're going to have the spirit. We're going to do everything we can to keep the spirit in. Everybody's going to have to play the video game for the first 4 hours of your shift or something, like get this vibe in. But the story, I think, for the first like introduction, the perspective, we've seen Liu Kang a gajillion times. And so I think that's one of the things that's kind of like tired. I would love to see like a dual like headlining story of like Sub-Zero and Scorpion and just kind of seeing their paths intersect and their whole rivalry, like just drive a whole origin story.
That'd be cool.
And I think that would be really, really neat. And it's kind of like, I don't know, because they have such like a long story. You could come in and out of each of their stories and where they intertwine and then involve so many other characters.
Yeah.
And I think that would be really cool. And then that would kind of give the urgency of like the tournament and stuff, because they did mention that like, well, they're there, Scorpion's there because they found out Sub-Zero is going to be there and stuff. But like, I didn't feel like how much that meant to him throughout the entire thing,
Right.
So it would be cool to see like a live action movie where like, Sub-Zero's there for his reasons, Scorpion's there to get after him. It's kind of just like this like big, Mexican standoff, but in a tournament sense. So it feels like a ladder tournament, but it's also driven by this like spy versus spy story essentially. And then like you could get more complicated from the tournament from there because everybody's kind of there for their own reasons.
Yeah.
And I think it could be, you need to get somebody with like Avenger movie level like intertwining, right, like storylines to make that work. But I think if you had a poster of like just Sub-Zero's face and Scorpion's face like face off and stuff and just put it up on a billboard, I think
That
every
would
Mortal
sell.
Kombat fan in the world and casual fans would be like, yes.
I mean, it just works so well. They're both ninjas. There's two like really good, great primary colors. Just as an artist, just symmetry.
Just don't call it like Fire and Ice or something stupid like that.
Right. I have to say though, it like me. What gets my tits off is thinking about how it'd be the first time. Like the scene is Katana's coming to the tournament, and we're following her like we were saying before, and she steps in, and it's the first time she sees Liu Kang, it's the first time she sees Raiden, like, but it's in this perspective of her, you know, the camera's behind her, and it's like camera her, and then the guys in the background. God, it'd just be so weird to follow Katana the whole movie. That'd be insane.
I think it would be super interesting just because she's, she grew up rich, but then also imprisoned, and then she was privileged, but she also like learned to combat, and then also like just to find out how she like is a ninja in a bikini, and not have that stuff fall off, like it's just like
so she can move faster.
But this story thing kind of is a good segue into like probably what's going to end up being one of our last points, I guess, depending on what you guys think about time.
Yeah, no.
But
good. I had one last thing.
So I heard that Mortal Kombat is actually rushing to try to get a trailer out before Shang-Chi in the Ten Rings.
Yeah.
Because they just revealed the plot, like one-liner for Shang-Chi, and it is remarkably similar to Mortal Kombat. Ooh. And like it's something like this.
They need to put some distance.
Like a Bruce Lee-esque like lead character goes to a secret island to fight in a tournament to gain the 10 rings. And it's like so many things, like, and it's in a different dimension or something. Like it's like, or at least an altered thing, something like, and it's like, wow, I guess it's not, having a tournament isn't a unique idea, but just having, because I think Shang-Chi comes out like 2 or 3 weeks, are scheduled to come out like 2 or 3 weeks after Mortal Kombat, now that everything's shifted.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And is that right? Yeah, I guess that's right. After. But I don't know, it's just like, wow. So I guess Grace Randolph, she pointed out, she's like, Mortal Kombat's probably rushing to get a trailer out because it's not necessarily who comes out with the movie first, it's who imprints on the public first.
Yeah.
And so if the trailer for Mortal Kombat comes out first, then everybody be aware of it first, and then later it'll be like, oh, Shang-Chi copied that. I haven't checked this myself because I don't know Shang-Chi that well, but the things I was reading, it all said like Mortal Kombat tournament story pre-existed the tournament story of Shang-Chi. Mm-hmm. And so there's like, if anything, it might have been like kind of a, like Mortal Kombat was inspired by like Big Trouble in Little China, Bruce Lee, like, Enter the Dragon, all that stuff. And then the Shang-Chi stories are kind of like vibing off the Mortal Kombat stories and stuff. And but it's just wild that like so close to each other scheduled are going to be these like very similar plot lines,
It makes the elder nerd gods mad.
I don't, they might get a little bit of a bump for themselves, but I don't see that affecting Shang-Chi at all. Since it's a Marvel movie, I don't know.
Well, but I think that's why Mortal Kombat's trying to get the thing out first.
Yeah.
Because they haven't had a movie in over 20 years.
Yeah.
And they're going to just...
And so they're just like, we got to get that imprint out first that we did it.
They're going to get overshadowed.
They don't really have any big names either, man. I mean, was it...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, like Ludi Lin and...
Yeah. I mean,
Not it's going to be like a firework. I'm just going to load off the biggest one and let it go. And
I kind of like that because with a big ensemble cast like this, it's like if you can't be Marvel and have all stars, then just get really good unknown faces so that for me they just become, it's like Harry Potter,
and
Daniel,
make a good movie.
like Daniel Radcliffe. Like we hadn't seen him at all before, and then like, okay, now he's just Harry Potter for the rest of his life.
Honestly, if they do Mortal Kombat, like the title is Mortal Kombat, if they do Mortal Kombat right, they can have a 2 and a 3. And they can build and we can see like more of the Lin Kuei and later in the story and the Revenants and shit.
That's the thing.
If they build the first one.
That's the thing. We didn't get to see either of those tribes, the Shiryu or the Lin Kuei.
Yeah, that's true.
Which was interesting, which is why I thought like having a movie that was like the two clans rivalry.
Yeah.
Because you saw a little bit of it. And I don't know, if Josh, if you picked up on the whole rivalry watching. Like it goes a lot deeper than they put in there. But like here, I don't know, they kind of... they painted it kind of like they are an annoyance to each other, but in reality, like in Mortal Kombat lore, they're more like the Hatfields McCoys. they've been fighting each other so long they don't know why, you know, and it's just like very murderous and stuff.
We hardly saw any Tarkatans.
That was interesting too. And they had this little nod to Naitara.
Yeah,
She was in, I think, Mortal Kombat 4 or 5. She was the vampire that was at the table that Johnny thought was a craft table, and she like hisses at him and stuff. And I was like, man, if you were a fan of hers, like you got gypped.
Yeah.
She's like she hisses a few times.
I found it funny. Well, they didn't even say Baraka's name, and he's just all. I was like, is that Baraka? Like I'm like,
I thought the same thing. I was like, yeah, is that another Tarkatan? I think they did say his name in passing, like much later in the movie, and that's the only way I knew for sure, because I was like, that is either Baraka or just another Tarkatan.
Yeah.
And at some point, someone like under their breath or something is like, oh, and then Baraka. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
it was him. But yeah, I thought it would have been made more of a big deal. I guess maybe they're going for like some sort of realism, like in normal cartoons, like he would have dropped out of the sky and be like, I am Baraka, king of the puppet, and then he would just give his monologue
in Stanley-esque style.
Yeah, but in this one, they're just like, they kind of like Black Panther. He's like, I don't care, you know, like.
True.
Yeah.
So but I don't know. There had to been a way to like give him, because there's so many huge fans of Baraka,
True.
to give him like a better moment. Because unless he survived that avalanche, which they didn't paint it like he would, because they purposely showed all 3 temples collapsing from the mountainside onto one person,
Right.
Which was hilarious because it was so overkill. Me and Vince were like laughing.
Yeah.
We're like, oh my god, like
Yeah.
he just like he kicks something and then all of a sudden like this entire building like just comes down. But I don't know. And then the parallel fight was like Liu Kang and Kitana, and that was so anticlimactic. I mean, it was a cool fight scene while it was happening.
Yeah.
And I guess they didn't want to kill either of them because Kitana, even though I don't think she would, I love her and I don't think she would be a great like proponent for a mainline story. She is important for the story here on out. Mm-hmm. So I guess that makes sense. But at the same time, it's like, I guess, but they killed everybody else. Like, I don't know. It was interesting. Like, Goro does die in the main storyline in virtually everything, you know, in the first tournament.
He always dies.
I guess I just didn't expect it. So I guess that's what gives me, one of the things that gave me the sense that the people who worked on this knew the lore and not necessarily like we're trying to write a story to like sell as much, because I would kind of see it as like, you know, when Heroes was on TV, after the first season did so well, they just kind of literally try to make the same season with the same characters over and over again, and it gradually got worse. And I was like, man, I would just love to see, they were in New York for the first movie. I would have loved to see like them go to LA and find a whole new set of characters, and then they intertwine. It's like a comic, you know, they'll intertwine every once in a while. But they literally just stuck with the same people and put them in the same storylines over and over again.
It's like, Jesus.
Yeah.
So with this one,
well, I feel like that was probably something to do with contracts and whatnot. Like, they kept bringing people back, and you're like, come on, man, just kill them all. You killed them off.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily want them.
characters.
I wouldn't necessarily want them killed off. You know, it's just like
Push on.
like they started doing it in the later seasons when they went to the circus and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
So like more things like that where we get kind of, because the whole intrigue of the show was that meeting these new people, that was, and their abilities, that was kind of like the breath of fresh air. You know, and then continuing to see the characters go through was a cool thing, but not as a peak of an impact of first meeting them.
Yeah.
And so like just being able to build like this comic book library, you know, in a show would have been cool. So like for Mortal Kombat, I would have thought if it was like a normal Hollywood writer, they were like, we're not going to kill Goro. Besides Scorpion, he might be the most iconic thing. Like I think people who never play the game know who Goro is. Right. You know, so I would have thought they were going to keep him on as just like to sell toys or something. You know, but they're just like, nope, skull out of the head.
Right.
You know, and it's like, wow, okay, they get this because he's supposed to die in this first tournament,
Well,
or
it was
the ninth tournament.
Weird too, because it was like in the tournaments it's supposed to be like one-on-one combat, and he just like walks in while, you know, he's ripping apart Liu Kang or whatever, and like then he kills him. I was like, well, wait a minute, isn't that against the rules? Like I that's why I feel like they kind of really downplayed the actual tournament in the movie.
Yeah, and they never talked about what the rules were. It's like, you get it,
Yeah.
okay, here you go.
What is that?
It's like it's
No
a free
hold-
for all kind of, you know, as everybody
Yeah,
runs to the temple.
No holds. What does that
Barred.
say? Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I think that may have been a nod to that is still a really weak one. If it is, I'm just like stretching here. Was when Shang Tsung was like, "Oh, the Black Dragon have infiltrated the island," and Raiden's like, "You broke the rules." And from that point on, it's kind of like, is it just chaos now? Was that what that point was for?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Like that is just like a free for all now. Like the tournament's spoiled, but they didn't explicitly say that. They weren't like, "Oh, now everything's just messed up." because this thing happened. They just kind of like, oh, the Black Dragon are here. He's like, so does that mean the tournament's not? What's going on now?
Yeah, because Scorpion, what was his match? The Black Dragons, because he killed all of them.
Yeah, but did he have a fight before that?
Just saying.
Not that I remember.
If he did or if he didn't, it's just funny that all these people are supposed to be like fighting one person, and he killed off the entire force.
Yeah, he's way too OP.
And Goro, he kills everybody.
Well, Goro makes sense because he's the champion.
Yeah,
he's kind of implied to have been the one that wins the previous 9 tournaments.
Yeah,
and I'm so glad they kept that storyline because it's such a simple storyline to keep, but it's one that I think that someone who didn't know the franchise would have glossed over. Because the thing about the first game is actually the 9th tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it's if Outworld wins all 10, like the next actually this one is the 10th tournament, so the 9th one just happened. So this is the 10th tournament. If they win the 10th tournament, then Earth gets absorbed into Outworld, and it's just like they didn't have to go there because that would have been a detail. That's a detail that everybody knows, but I think only like fans know is like how foundational of a fact that is, to be.
An interesting point too, real fast, because we'll probably wrap this up soon. But the way they depict the interdimensional aspect of like the veil is only thin this type of time, whatever, and then that literally the way to get in there is almost like a Bermuda Triangle ish, where you like just float into it, and then eventually you're in a different dimension
that looks just like China.
Yeah,
which like, I love so much.
It's like vaguely Asian.
Mm-hmm.
You're at Shang Tsung's island. It's crazy, and he's in between realms.
He's not Earth, but he's not on Earth.
He's not Outworld either.
Yeah,
or he is. I don't know.
He's like this crossroads of several dimensions.
That's right. We'll see Ghost Rider there.
But I think they got. I was really waiting when they were like, "We're going to Shang Tsung's island." I'm like, this better be the most epic fucking entrance I've seen. And I mean, it wasn't like extraordinary blowout, but it was like very satisfactory. It's like that's pretty good. Like
three walkways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I did love the way they portrayed the pit.
Yeah,
like when Scorpion knocks Sub-Zero off, like, oh, they did it. They did the pit, because that's something the first movie
together. They did the pit together,
right? And those are the two main characters. No, the first movie, they didn't have a pit, and I'm like, how did you miss that detail?
Stupid.
Like
so dumb.
You missed so many. You missed so many. It was kind of like when there was a Steak and Shake in Burbank.
Right.
It's like it had the name, but nothing after
on the
that
menu,
was the same.
It was like, what the heck?
Sorry,
this
that only
place?
makes sense to like Midwest people in LA.
You keep coming back to the Steak and Shake. I don't.
Right.
It just aggravates
It's
me.
just like you had a Mortal Kombat movie that didn't have a lot of profanity, had zero blood or violence, and then didn't have a pit. And I was like, what's next? Are you going to cut Liu Kang and Goro? Like, I don't understand. Like
Simpsons without a Bart Simpson.
Right?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Well, that's more like with this new one, and this is probably going to be the last thing I say about it. Like with the new one coming out, if it doesn't have like Johnny Cage in it, it's got to have some kind of like comic relief, because you're walking into this and there's crazy stuff going on. I mean, like from my point of view, like this movie was kind of made by Johnny Cage. Like he was the fun aspect of this movie. You're going in through him, like what the heck is going on in this whole thing? Like if this, I mean, like I guess the guy playing Jax is kind of a funny dude or whatever, but like
kind of. So that'll be interesting. They didn't really develop his character a whole lot, besides that he's like the commanding officer. Mm-hmm. And I guess he did have a little bit of like some.
Well, I'm taking
like,
in the newer movie
quips.
In this movie coming
yeah.
out, like the guy that's Jax in the newer movie, he's kind of a funny dude, but like there's no like you were talking about earlier. There's no Johnny Cage, at least not yet that we know.
Yeah, I don't think Jax could be that. Well, if they did make Jax like that comic relief, they would kind of be doing it wrong, because Jax historically is like. He's very stoic. Like he's the Boy Scout soldier. He's like kind of like the American version of Liu Kang.
Yeah.
A little bit less disciplined because he like kind of goes off the wire. That's why he's there,
arms.
But like his whole thing is like throughout the story, things get more and more traumatic for him to the point where his
kids are involved in shit.
Well, yeah, his kids involved. But the thing is like his his perspective is kind of like Hawkeye in Age of Ultron. Where like all this crazy stuff's happening. He's like, all I got is a bow and arrow, and there's a robot island. It's like, nothing makes sense.
We're flying in the island in the air.
Yeah, and so Jax is kind of like what I thought Sonya and like Johnny would be like. They're like, guys, we're way out of our league here, But Jax just kind of goes in, and he's like, I'm out of my league, but I'm a soldier, and so he fights, and he to the point where he gets murdered or killed in battle, and then brought back to life as a subservient evil zombie for like a revenant. Like essentially, like it's like your soul in hell, but then they build a new body for you that's like a decrepit corpse kind of thing that's like glowing
that you host.
And so his mind is trapped. It's like Get Out. His mind is trapped in his own body. Like, so it's someone who's like kind of like that borderline Boy Scout, feeling his hands do all the killing, but not being able to control it, but living in his head while it's happening, goes on for I don't know how many years in the story, and then he gets resurrected. Like he gets saved. I think it was Johnny that saved him. Like brought him out from being a revenant. And so he becomes like a person again, but he's so like PTSD. He's got so much PTSD from all that stuff that he's just like not a functioning human anymore. And it's kind of like the one realistic touch point of the Mortal Kombat series is like, who lives through that and becomes a normal person afterwards,
No one.
And so Jax is like kind of like that. He's never normal from there to the point where like
Johnny Cage too. I'm not Johnny Cage. Liu Kang.
Yeah, well, see, Liu Kang's always just kind of like
He's the stoic guy.
Yeah,
he's the guy that moral gumption kind of deal.
Yeah,
but he just
goes through that too, though, with the whole Revenant stuff.
Well, he goes through the Revenant, but when he gets out of it, he's just like, okay, back to business.
Yeah,
But Jax is just kind of like, what the heck? Because he gets dishonorably discharged from the army because of that, and then he just he becomes an alcoholic. He lives downhill. He lives on a farm and doesn't like do anything but chop wood and watch TV and drink beer, and so he gets like severe depression and stuff. And so it would just be like so. You would know that if someone wrote Jax as like an ongoing like comic relief for a movie in place of Johnny Cage, they would just like be missing the point, like completely. So I agree that like Johnny's got to be a part of the movie unless we're just gonna pull like another like anime
Logan.
Quan Chi, like the Quan Chi comes like, hey guys, I'm here too. Like,
I mean, there's got to be some kind of comedic, and I really wish that it was like Chris Pratt. I mean, like I don't know, like. I know we talked about like these are relatively like unknowns ish for these roles, but I would have loved all those Boss Logic stuff that we talked about like last year or whatever, like Terry Crews as Jax or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So the last thing I'll say about the Johnny Cage thing, I think it would be a really cool surprise if the reason that they haven't said that Johnny Cage is in the movie is that if at the last minute for like marketing push. They make it an A-lister. Like, it's like Jean-Claude Van Damme. Well, not Jean-Claude Van Damme's not an A-lister.
Chris Pratt.
But yeah, Chris Pratt or somebody. Like, they have like Chris Pratt or Ryan Reynolds or somebody, is like, is like there is a big star. They just don't announce it until the end.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, I could just see Josh be like, wee.
Seriously. However, like, I wish they would have maybe had a whole giant cast of stars, but I kind of understand them being a little, I don't know, cautious, to say the least.
It's just they'll have to prove themselves with this first outing movie wise because it's kind of like a bunch of critics have said like this franchise doesn't need the movies, like the movies are trying to make money off the franchise. So it's just like the games themselves, even especially now. I mean, obviously they didn't know this when they were filming, but like the games are just booming. They're going to release Combat Pack or like announce Combat Pack 2 soon. And so for everybody that already spent $100 on the game, you're going to get another like $35-$40 from them.
Yeesh.
Just because I'm going to want the new characters, and so like the games can just keep functioning like that.
Yeah.
So,
honestly,
but I don't know. So I enjoyed it. I think it wasn't perfect, but it was I'll agree with everybody that I've heard talk about the movie and Ed Boon himself. Like I do feel like it was the first time I saw like the spirit of Mortal Kombat in like a movie or film or TV like kind of medium. So I dig it.
Man, I really have like a place in my heart from the original. I mean, just for the fact that my grandparents, I walked in on them once and they were like watching it, and I'm like, "You were watching this?" And they're, "Oh yeah, it's a really good movie. I like it. We've seen it a few times." And I'm like, "Okay." Like, there's just I don't know, that movie it has a charm to it.
Yeah, it is quintessentially 90s.
Yes, very much so.
They were just missing Zach Morris riding through on a skateboard, saying like, "What's up, dude? Tubular."
Freeze frame and like everybody freezes and he talks or something.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts, Vince?
Wubba lubba dub dub.
Cool. Well,
What else can we say?
If you want to get Scorpion's Revenge, it's on like all the digital services right now. At the time of
I think
hearing,
it's only on Amazon.
no, I got it on Apple.
Yeah, it's Google Play, Amazon Prime.
Dude, I tried looking it up on Google Play. What the crap? I didn't want to buy it on freaking Amazon.
Yeah, I got mine on my Apple TV. And then if you want the physical medium, the Blu-ray, DVD, and it has a digital code, that comes out I think April 28th. But double check that; it's soon. By the time you hear this,
With a custom butt plug.
and if you if you missed it, we the last episode we interviewed Ron Wasserman, the writer of the Power Rangers theme song. Woo! So
Yeah, it was fun.
go back and check that out. And
Watch Canadian Ron Wasserman on YouTube right now.
oh yeah. Yeah, we were saying that the way Josh animated Ron on the podcast, the video on YouTube, he looks like a Canadian from South Park.
Yeah, he definitely looks like the brothers or whatever. Yeah.
Terrence and Phillip.
So check that out. We have me and Vince on RKVC have a channel of a video with Ron we shot 2 years ago. We finally released.
We got a channel too.
That's doing pretty good. We'll say like it's spiking pretty hard. Every time we think it's going to slow down, it spikes another time. So
Yeah, it's a pretty good video, man.
thank you. And it took a day and a half to render, so I'm glad everybody likes it. And then I just finished rendering the next 2 videos, so go check out that, the podcast interview. And tomorrow, or actually, all these would be out by the time you hear this. Then we have YouTube covers of Power Rangers that we show Ron. That's another video I just finished. That'll be up by the time you hear this.
So funny.
Nice.
And then the full extended interview that we used to put together the video that we just put out. So lots of Ron Wasserman this week. Like 4 out of the 5 days of the weekdays.
Yep.
Nice.
And, what do you got going on starting a record label?
I had like 3 interviews this week, which is
Nice.
weird. Like I hadn't have anybody respond, and I'm like, everybody's like, when do you want to do it this week? Like, oh crap! Like, and you guys are like, hey, let's do it tomorrow, today, and I'm like, okay. I got these doing every single night of the week, I guess.
Nice.
Nice.
But
yeah,
no, that's great.
Everybody's
I guess,
settling. Everybody's settling into their podcast lives now. They realize it's been like a month of quarantine.
Well, I get really weird on mine. Like sometimes I've had to do some alone, and so it's just really weird. To where like I kind of almost have to script the whole dang thing, and even afterwards, I'm like, I don't know if this makes any sense or if I'm just being really cringy. But
Yeah.
but it's nice to have other people to talk to. It's just way easier.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool that. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hope you enjoy Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge, because it's quarantine season, so we're running out of content.
Yeah,
That's right. We'll be back next week with a whole lot more nerd activism things. No, just playing.
Activism.
nerd activism.
It's a new thing, guys.
Let's
Next episode, okay?
let's pick a movie or something to watch,
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
unless some crazy news comes out.
All
All
right,
guys.
Nerd activism. You heard it first. Next time on Yellow Spandex. Psych!